Well, hello, everybody. Probably don't see me much on the channel as far as talking. I don't want to say that I'm going to be on here all the time, but I'm going to try to make it more often, at least when I have something to say. With Ginger's cancer diagnosis over last fall, it kind of changed a lot. And one of the things that had to take a back seat was the YouTube channel, just by nature. We have two young kids, we have a disabled adult at home, and so those things bring their own challenges. But when you factor cancer into it, it adds a whole another layer to it. Since we are in a whole new area, we just got down here in January of 2023, so at the time of her diagnosis, we hadn't even been down here a year yet. I just want to say a few things, right? This is not formal at all. There's a lot of channels out there on different social media platforms that will claim to have some special insight, or that will try to give you like a sermon or a sermon type monologue, and it's just supposed to change your life. On the other end of the spectrum, I see that there are many people that I listen to that I won't name right now, right? But there's channels that if I mention them, you'd probably know, who just provide some, godly encouragement. And so on that end of the spectrum, they're not being formal, right? Being very informal, but still getting a much needed point across. And that's where I try to hope to be, really, is on the latter end of that. Some of you may or may not know, but in New Jersey, I was in the ministry. I worked for a church, and I also, served for. I was in ministry there for 8 years, but I think I was actually assistant pastor officially for about a year, not quite a year, after I finished seminary. And then, of course, we moved. So I have that background. I was also in ministry before that. So I've been in ministry a long time. Since we've moved here is the longest stretch in my life. Well, I'll say since I was 16. Okay, not my whole life. But since I was 16, which was, believe it or not, 16 years ago, right? This is the longest stretch, about a year and a half, without really being involved in ministry. Now I go to church, right? And I teach Bible classes at a small college here in Kentucky. I do talk about this stuff quite a bit. I do also just want to say, because I said that I teach, right? But I do teach, and the reason why I can teach is because I, got my Master's of Divinity degree while we were still in New Jersey, and so I do have that. The plan was to get my doctorate, and that's still in the ether, if you will, but, there's other things going on right now. So, with all that said, I felt kind of inspired, and I draw inspiration from and some good theological ideas from a lot of podcasts that I listen to, a lot of YouTube channels that I listen to. And, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, this is just life-changing, right? My whole faith is, transformed, and thank you so much, right? I've had a few of those experiences in my life, but very few. I'm not expecting that. But what I hope out of this, and, I'm doing one video right now, so I won't be going over this every time that I do these videos. But what I'm going to be doing is, as I feel that there is something to talk about, then we'll talk. I'm not going to get into every week. Right, I can't commit to that because I have obligations here. But if I have something to talk about every week, then I will. But I'm not going to be doing that every week, just because there's a lot of things going on in my house that I have to deal with. If Ginger's not feeling good, or with the children, right? So there's a lot of things going on. I don't always have the time, but as the Lord allows, I will hop on. Just wanted to share this with you. Because it's really I actually have been thinking about this probably for the last week. And I did make a video that will never see the light of day. I just didn't like it. I wanted to redo it. Felt it was a little too formal. So this is, again, much more informal than any kind of church service. I will never call this a church service. I'm not even going to call this a prayer meeting, right? Only thing that I'm going to do is call it maybe just a little bit of insight into your faith, right? Something that may or may not help you today, or may not help you tomorrow, or may or may not help you a month down the line. So I talked a little bit about the move, and I did not ask Ginger this beforehand, but I would venture to guess that for her, this whole move was probably in the top 3 most difficult things she ever did. Because, you're leaving everything behind and you're going to a new place. For me, it's probably the most difficult thing I ever did. I had a lot of people who may or may not be watching this video, I don't know, who really thought that it was crazy because, we were very well established in New Jersey. I mean, we both were born and raised there. Ginger lived there for 90% of her life, with a short stint in the tri-state area. So she's always been in that area for her whole life. And I've been there my whole life. Like, I actually had thought about it. And really, I had lived in 3 different places, in New Jersey in my whole life. And guess what? They were within a 10-mile radius. Probably a little less, but within a 10-mile radius. This was huge for me. Now, looking back, I don't want to say we're through the chaos, right? Always something happens. I would say that now we're on the downside of that particular chaos, the chaos of moving, getting here, getting established, getting a job, making sure the house is okay, getting everything unpacked, which, by the way, there's still some stuff that's not unpacked, right? So with all that said, it really just made me ask why, why? Now, yes, you can ask Ginger this move. In fact, she's even encouraged me a lot, because there was a time when we first got here in Kentucky, and I looked at Ginger and I'm like, we could just go back because everything was really in chaos. And Ginger, was the one who was like, no, we're called to be here and we're going to stay here. So she's encouraged me a lot, because there's been times where I've just wanted to, when we moved here, the whole move where I just wanted to pack up and leave, right? Because everything here is chaos. And I just want to just reiterate, right? It's with the house, it's not with Ginger and I by any means. But the chaos of the move alone was very stressful. Why go through all that? And I made many trips up here. I made a couple by myself, but generally I had somebody going with me. Either way, though, I still had to load and unload the trailer. I still had to do some driving. And so, in that time, what was I always telling myself? I was always telling myself, well, it was for my kids, so that my kids can have a better life. And, and we'll talk about that in another video. That's not really the purpose of this video. But that they could not have a better life than they have right now. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful that my thesis was right. That coming here was the correct call. And it was, by the way, hands down. But it was extremely uncomfortable, right, to do that. It was extremely uncomfortable. Not just the security of living where we were and being comfortable, having a very, very stable income, to having to start over. And also friends, family, support system, right? That stuff too. There was a whole plethora of things that made this extraordinarily difficult. I really, now looking back, I found myself over the last month or so, just thinking about it and saying, why? And not why in the sense of, oh my gosh, why did I move here? No. It was, why was I willing to risk everything to get this? Because, I have it now, and I'm so thankful that I did it. But man, was it crazy along the way, right? And I'm not going to reveal any names, but I was talking with a colleague here in Kentucky. I think it was last spring. So we had been here a couple months. And I was talking with him, and, I was telling him a little bit about what was going on. At that time, it was really just house stuff. We didn't know about Ginger's situation at that time. He was telling me some stuff that was going on with him and his life. He kind of just told me, when I started going into detail about the house and stuff, he just kind of told me, he kind of chuckled a little bit, and he said, well, he said, I'm going through this, that, and the other thing as well. And it is a reminder that God has you where he wants you. And that really stuck with me. I grew up and I've attended many different churches and many different denominations in my life. I've been to churches that will tell you, that God just wants you to live this extraordinarily easy life. And I don't see it. You are not supposed to be comfortable, right? Now, that's not to say that you're not going to have periods of comfort, right? Periods where things are going good. For instance, now, again, this is very informal. I'm not going to, say, oh, well, in Mark chapter 11 in this. No, I'm not going to do that, right? But I'm going to give you general ideas that most people would know out of the Bible and scriptures and church history, right? So with that said, okay, let's look at Peter. Now, Peter, before Jesus came along, was in a period of what we would say is probably comfort from all that we know. Now, was Peter living the lap of luxury? No. But Peter was in a situation where he was a fisherman, and while he was not, driving the Maserati of boats, right, for his fishing expeditions, he was probably doing okay. And then, of course, Jesus came along, and everything changed. Ultimately, through church history, which teaches us that Peter was crucified upside down. Why? Because he didn't want to be crucified right side up, because he didn't feel like he was worthy to be crucified in the manner that his Lord and Savior was. Think about that for just a minute, right? It wasn't, well, God really wants me to overcome her, and, I'm just going to get right through this, and everything's going to be okay, right? Everything's going to be fine. No, generally not. As a matter of fact, 11 of the 12 disciples were martyred. 11 of the 12 were martyred. The only one that wasn't martyred was John. Pretty high odds there. I just want to encourage you, because it's brought me a lot of comfort to realize, when you're seeing on social media, right? And in fact, I think I just saw like an hour ago, a post of, God's bringing blessings your way, and doors are just going to burst open with blessings from heaven, right? If you just share this post, right, it's as stupid as it sounds. Not to say that you're not going to be blessed, but probably not in the way that you think. Beyond that, like if we look at people who, church pillars of the church. Again, we use Peter, but there's also other ones, right? There's also the entire early church, right, who suffered immensely. And so, you're not necessarily meant to live in this state of ecstasy. There will be troubles, but at the end of the day, we are not called to not go through troubles. We are called to be a people who realizes that God, that we are doing the things of God, and as difficult as they may be, we are called to do them regardless. I'll give you just a personal, I think probably somewhat, maybe too personal, but it's fine. I wish, I tell Ginger this all the time. I wish that I had, met Ginger a long time ago, because I was waiting, right? I was waiting. I was praying all the time. God, just send her my way, please. And it was always wait until it wasn't wait, right? And, ultimately I could have settled for less, right? I could have settled for someone different. I could have, just went ahead and just went out there like unfortunately, like a lot of young people do, get with the first person that pays any attention to me, just because we want to be comfortable. We spend so much time and energy avoiding discomfort that I think that the pursuit itself to avoid discomfort is a discomfort, right? And so, there's so many things going on in this world today that I'm sure makes a lot of you uncomfortable. Maybe there's something God is calling you to do, but you know that it's going to make you extremely uncomfortable, at least in the short term, maybe medium term, and maybe even long term. But you know that it's something that God is calling you to do. Let me be an example for you, if I may, right? I know that that's probably extremely egotistical of me, and I do apologize. But if I can be any sort of an example for you, to just say that, uh, it's okay to be uncomfortable. As long as God is leading you, and as long as you know that it's something that God has called you to do, then be as uncomfortable as possible, really, because you know that you are doing it for the right reasons. And so, again, I had that all throughout the move. And listen, I'm not going to tell you, and I just knew that this was for the better, and I knew that this was the right thing, and I just did it. No, I mean, I did ultimately do it, but it was extremely uncomfortable along the way. If you're in this situation and you need any type of prayer or, just leave a comment down below. But as I said, guys, this is not going to be something that's regular, right? Like, don't expect to post the new video every week about this. But as things come up and as I feel led, I'll say, then I'll reach out to you guys and post a video. But for now, just suffice it to say that if you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation, just know that if it's according to His will, then He is with you wherever you may go. God bless you all.